Yesterday I watched it on YouTube. Now I know it's a fact.
G'day everyone, I'm the Anti-Theocrat, and yes, we're back for another one. I've kicked in on what's playing on my screen. That's an interesting way to start this video. Well, that's alright, it's all good. I thought before we kicked off I'd show you why I'm pouring these out so fast. This is a look at my computer desktop, and as you can see, there are an awful lot of dissenter browser windows open. And as you can see beside that, there's a couple of Opera windows open as well. Now, each of these browser windows has anything from 3 to 5 tabs open as well. So this is all stuff that I have to dig through and try and get videos out on. And every time I try and clear one, like the one I'm about to do, it just came up. 2 of the articles on the video you're about to see have come to my attention over the last 12 hours. So all the previous windows are aging, and some of them might actually get closed because they get too old for me to use. That's how things are running. That's why you keep getting so many videos. As soon as I can find the time to record them, you get them. Okay, let's look at the window we're after. Ernest Belford Bax. Now, I have to admit that, like with my atheism, I didn't read about other people's opinions and what have you of men's rights overly much. I just got involved in the discussions and sort of worked my own way around it. But after reading this, I think I might actually take a look at a couple of Ernest's books. And you can see there's the Kindle link in the sidebar there, so that we know he actually exists as a writer. So I've looked him up already. I'm going to buy a couple of these and have a look at them. Custody of Children in 1896. It's more than 100 years ago this guy was writing. The following is an excerpt from Bax's The Legal Subjugation of Men in 1896 from page 16. Custody of children. It has always in England been laid down as a fundamental law based on public policy that the custody of children and their education is a duty incumbent on the father. It is said to be so fundamental that he is not permitted to waive his exercise of the right by prenuptial contract. He cites a legal case there. This rule of the common law of England is of course in harmony with the policy of all Europe and Christendom, as well as with the historic conditions of the European social organisation, if not with the primal instincts of the race. Nevertheless, fundamentally and necessarily, as a rule may be, the pro-feminist magistrates and judges of England are bent apparently on ignoring it with a light heart. They have not merely retained the old rule that the custody of infants of tender years remain with their mother until the child attains an age of 7, but they go much further than that. As a matter of course, and without considering in the least the interests of the child or of society at large, they hand over custody and education of all children to the litigant wife, whenever she establishes an easy thing to do, a flimsy and often farcical case of technical cruelty. The victim husband has the privilege of maintaining the children as well as herself out of his property or earnings, and has the added consolation of knowing they will be brought up to detest him. Even in the extreme case where the deserted wife takes with her the children of the marriage, there is practically no redress for the husband if in narrow circumstances. The police courts will not interfere. The divorce court, as already stated, is expensive to the point of prohibition. In any case, the husband has to face a tribunal already prejudiced in favour of the female, and the attendant scandal of a process will probably have no other result than to injure his children and future prospects in his life. Now, this was written more than 100 years ago, and that stands how men generally find themselves treated in the family courts today. They retain the right to pay. They get the right to pay for things that they're no longer getting. They're no longer getting access to their children. They're no longer raising their children. They're no longer getting laid by the woman who had them. But they get the right to pay for those things. So, when you're talking about men's rights, this is a fundamental problem that we have, and it's existed for more than 100 years. To make a point of this, I found this story, which is the other two articles that I was given actually linked into this quite nicely. Family court psychologist hit with ban after labelling father psychopathic without evidence. A Perth psychologist appointed by the family court has been found guilty of professional misconduct for writing an official report labelling a father's personality style as psychopathic without a criminal diagnosis. Now, I'm actually surprised that this has happened, but I'm not surprised that it's happened at the same time. I'm surprised that he's getting a kick in the ass for it. I'm not surprised that it happened. In disciplinary action published by the WA State Administrative Tribunal, the psychologist has been ordered to pay a $20,000 fine and has been banned from acting as a single expert witness in either the WA or Australian family courts. But he hasn't been told he can't practice as a psychologist, has he? He just can't act as an individual expert, a single expert witness in any courts. He could ply his trade with someone else. So if he was part of an organisation that was offering expert opinion, then he could still be part of that. It's just he can't do it on his own anymore. The disciplinary action against the psychologist brought about by the Psychology Board of Australia, and this is where the win is. It's not the family court that have pulled him up. The family court were quite happy to go along. It's the Psychology Board of Australia who pulled him up. Anyway, stemmed from a report he wrote that same year as the only expert witness for a custody dispute heard by the family court of WA. The report said that a 9-year-old boy at the centre of the dispute should be protected from his father, who, he said, had traits of a psychopathic personality disorder. Now, take us back to poor old Ernest and what he wrote about how men are treated by the courts. And what are we, about 130 years on? This is what we're seeing in the family courts. Now, here it says the report was critical. The report was of critical importance to the timely determination of proceedings of the family court. The decision by SAT member Charlotte Wallace Jackman, who cares? The family court was likely to place great importance upon the report because the psychologist had been appointed by the family court, not by the party to the proceedings. So the court was likely to take his report more seriously than had the wife or the husband employed this person. This was their man. They were going to stand behind him. But he's had his ass kicked. In the meanwhile, did the husband lose access to his child for any period of time because of this? I don't know. I don't want to dig any further into this case. I just found it interesting that this is the state of our family courts more than 100 years after poor old Ernest was writing this piece. Now, I want to attach this extra one that just came to me, not because it has any attachment to the family court system, but because it shows in part why our court systems are so attached to this idea that it can discriminate against men this way. From the ABC again. Thoroughly disgraced woman handed 2 years suspended sentence for having sex with students. A woman who slept with 5 students at a prestigious New South Wales school won't spend any further time in custody after being handed a 2-year suspended sentence by a judge who said she'd been thoroughly disgraced. The 25-year-old pleaded guilty in April to 6 counts of sexual intercourse with a person under her care and 3 counts of aggravated sexual intercourse. Aggravated sexual intercourse. This is rape, right? By any means that you describe this to a man taking this action against a girl, of aggravated sexual intercourse, and you would call it rape. Now, technically, she was taking advantage of students, which means this sexual intercourse of persons under her care should also be considered rape. She has an adult responsibility to care for these people. She has essentially groomed these kids. The offence related to her appointment as a deputy mistress at the Armadale School in 2014-15, when she supervised a boarding house. The teenagers were between 15 and 18. Now, I'm going to jump to the key points, because I don't need to read the rest of this, I really don't. Woman 25 handed a suspended sentence over sleeping with 5 students under her care at the Armadale School between 2014 and 15. Now, she pleaded guilty to 6 counts of sexual intercourse with a person under her care and 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault. Now, that was shared between 5 students. A repeat offender. But apparently she's been thoroughly disgraced. And she's going to... Oh, hang on, we'll go back to the key points. Judge ruled the case was extremely unusual. No, it's fucking not, you Burke. And the woman has been thoroughly disgraced. No, she fucking hasn't, you Burke. I tell you, if I wasn't looking through the news feeds, I would not have seen this. Okay? They're just not popping up everywhere all the time. Nobody's making a massive fuss about this in the media. They're more worried about, what are they? Extinction Rebellion making a bit of a fucking art piece in the middle of Sydney or Melbourne or wherever the fuck. And even then you're not seeing the good stuff. The woman will be on the sex offenders register for life. And that's the only saving grace of this entire story. Because even though it was apparently extremely unusual and she has been thoroughly disgraced, she still has to go on the sex offender register. That's the only win out of this entire story. Now, while we're willing to forgive a woman for 6 counts of sexual intercourse and 3 counts of rape, how in the fuck do we ever hope to overcome this problem with the family court employing psychologists that are willing to label a father psychopathic just to get his kids taken away from him? For anyone who wants to have a look, I'll put the links to this page on Ernest and all the rest of it in the details as usual. This has been a lovely short one. I've enjoyed this one. There you go, 15 minutes. We're under 15 minutes. By the time it's all hooked up, it'll be 15. Okay, I've been the Anti-Theocrat. May your gods remain fictional, and I'll see you in the next one.